Let's get chilly. Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official and unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill and Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeff,
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
and we are at the point of the season. I suppose we were a game ago as well, but where every win means another episode of Let's Chill. Basically, as long as the Wind Chill keep winning, we're still putting out these. It's a good sign every time you see an episode, because that means the Wind Chill won last week. Um, and they beat the Radicals. So they're moving on to the Central Division Championship game against the Chicago Union in Chicago on August 6th, I believe. I don't remember the
Ninth.
date. It's a ninth. Thanks. Okay, I don't
Ninth.
know. See, it's a six, but upside down. It's pretty
Six,
close.
nine. What's the difference?
Nice. Either way,
Three.
it's gonna happen. um, and again, we're gonna preview the whole game tonight and like, get into it real deep. But just this is a game that the Wind Chill historically have not won. The Central Division Championship game against Chicago has been a tough one for them. So I'm really excited and really nervous to see how this game is gonna go.
Yeah, I think I remember the last two. I remember for sure there's one that started off pretty rough, if we remember that one. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna even talk about what happened, but just like from literally the opening poll, it was just off to a rough start. And so I think that's been emblematic. If I know I'm hopping into it a little bit right now, but even just like looking at the two games we played against Chicago this year, they sort of had a similar vibe where Minnesota just let them win the sprint, and by winning
Yeah.
that sprint, they also won the marathon. And I don't know. I guess we'll see how this one plays out, both within the context of the season and within the context of historical Central Division Championship matchups.
Right.
Speaking of Central Division Championships, this is Chicago's first time back since 2022.
Since they were in finals at championship weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And this is as you pointed out, Jay, earlier in our text, like the third straight, no,
This is Minnesota's fifth straight championship
the-
appearance. Central
uh,
Division Championship appearance.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. So five straight's good. I mean, that's experience under your belt, right? And like they've won the last two. And so and obviously we can't ignore like they won championship weekend last year. Like they've been in these big games a lot. Especially in recent memory. Chicago has not been. Um,
Yeah,
so
the
long.
last
Yeah, go ahead. No.
I was gonna say last year Chicago was in the semifinal for Central Division and lost to the Radicals. So Chicago was in the playoffs last year and
Mhm.
kind of fumbled a little bit.
It's just interesting that like in the context of playoffs and like big games, Minnesota definitely takes the edge there. Um, Again, in recent years, having the Central Division experience, or the championship experience, championship weekend, even semifinals, all that. But in the context of just this year, really short term, Chicago does have the edge. It has a pretty strong edge over Minnesota in their two games against them. And so I think that's really where I'm a little torn. Where again, I did predict the last episode that Chicago will win, that they're going to make it a championship weekend. We'll do our predictions at the end, so I won't spoil how I'm feeling this week. Um, but I'm very torn on what this game is going to look like. If we want to, again, we're kind of going loosey goosey today. If anyone has some like keys to the game, I have a couple like kind of rough keys to the game. But Kane and Jay, what do you think the Winchell like need to do, especially coming off of Madison? Like, what did we see in like against the Madison Radicals that the Winchell either need to change or that the Winchell really need to keep doing in order to get a win against Chicago in Chicago?
Yeah, so I think one thing we've been harping on a lot this year was the activation of the cutters in the mid space, and then also coming to meet the handlers where they are and giving them more options. I think they did a really good job of doing that against Madison. Um, I read an article earlier today actually, where Bivon was quoted saying that there were just more options on the field. Basically, was like the point he was making. They were utilizing the space, and they were utilizing their timing better. That's something I pointed out earlier in the season was that their timing kind of felt off,
Yeah.
and it felt like they were striking at the right points. They were hitting their cuts at the right points. And I think against a team like Chicago, who really thrives on taking advantage of that little bit of space you give them, you have to be precise with your timing. And so I think if we take that against Chicago, we tighten those windows up even a little bit more. We hit those spaces. We don't give them opportunities to get the D. We really make them work for it, and I think that'll help us succeed greatly. So
Yeah, you speak to timing. I think it was earlier this season where we talked a little bit about um using the stall count to your advantage. Like you don't have to throw it within the first 1 or 2 seconds. It might be advantageous to do so. I'm not saying don't, right? If you have that strike cut, absolutely take that first, don't let the stall count go. But you also do have 7 seconds, so it's not like you have to hit that strike cut. If you see somebody else making a better cut, it's just going to take a minute, right? Or no one's open yet. Let it breathe a little bit while still being smart. Because again, and I say that with hesitation because look at the game against the Union when that Quinn Snyder stall count, happened, and we broke it down on the pod here. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I think you can really use it to your advantage, like you said, Kane, and make the right cuts, take the right looks, and don't you have to force Chicago to force you to turn it over. You can't give them free turnovers, right? Like if they're going to get a block, make sure that they earn that block. Don't just leave it open. Like I think you kind of alluded to that, Kane.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
other than Minnesota, Chicago's been like the dominant defensive team this year as well. And I know Minnesota historically has been the defensive powerhouse, so it's just interesting to see how that matchup will play out now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
I was gonna say something that we saw against Madison that we haven't seen from Minnesota this year was a high hold percentage. So that's not to say Minnesota doesn't have high hold percentage, but just against playoff teams this year. So their games against Madison, Chicago, Salt Lake, and Atlanta.
Mhm.
This last game against Madison was their highest hold percentage of any of them, where they had
Wow.
75% holds. Their next highest was actually against Atlanta with 71%.
Wow.
Um,
And for the audience, Jay, can you just break down what that means exactly?
Yeah, so hold percentage is just any time your offense starts the point if you get the score. So you can turn it over, Minnesota could have turned it over 3 times on that point. As long as they got it back and scored, that's a hold for them. So you'll see like their excuse me, their O-line conversion percentage is lower because they turned it over on offense, but then got the disc back. So their O-line conversion percentage against Madison was 60%, despite their hold percentage being 75%. So they actually got
Right.
75% of all the times they started on offense, they scored, which again is the highest they've played against any playoff team this season.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not trying to just like recycle everything we've said this whole season, but like two things. One, Kane has harped on the importance and value of offense in the league. And then two, complementing and maybe even kind of repeating that is just like how valuable your offensive possessions are. Because in theory, your offensive possession should mean a point, right? It's the natural order of things. Like that's a weird phrasing, but like that offense, the team that receives the pull will score if we're going just back and forth. And so it's so valuable for the Minnesota's offense to be clicking at this moment. Like they're getting hot, hopefully, right at the right time. Their defense can be as good as they have been, but their offense is kind of where they've been lacking. So that's a key stat to bring up here in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think wait, this was my cue of the game, right? This was my
Yeah.
contribution. So I guess I had a second one, minor one, if you guys are okay with that, to kind of
Yeah.
tend to go off of that as well. Jay, I didn't have time to look this up. If you have the red zone percentage as well against Madison, I'm just interested to see how we did in the red zone. because
94%, 15 out of 16.
see, 94%. See, I think that's another stat I want to see play out. I didn't look it up before here because I just want to see like how it goes. Um, that might be the difference maker against Chicago, right? Is if we
Hmm.
can finish the point. Is it doesn't matter if we can uh, get it back on. Oh, if the hold doesn't complete and doesn't end. So
Yeah,
keep an eye on the red zone as well. Sorry, I just wanted to.
yeah, definitely. I'm
Um,
gonna kind of. Oh, go ahead, Jay. Yeah,
I was going
something.
to say, I think the red zone has been Minnesota's bread and butter this year. So, I mean, obviously, Minnesota's red zone conversion percentage has been really high for most of the season. They were top five. I think right now they're sitting just outside the top five. Um, but for opponent red zone conversion percentage, Minnesota's opponents are converting 70, just about 73% of the time in the red zone, which we saw, 71% for Madison, the last time they played in this playoff game. So, Minnesota is like cooking in the red zone. 71% seems pretty high, but when you're comparing that to Minnesota's 95 just about in the last game, like they're getting pushed. Madison's getting pushed out of the red zone. Teams are getting pushed out of the red zone against Minnesota. They're not being able to punch it in. That's where a lot of turns are happening. And that's when they're knocking on the doorstep. So that's when defense almost matters the most. So Minnesota's defense is really ratcheting it up there. Um, I think a good way of thinking about this is, you know, the opponent's completion percentage against Minnesota has been right around 90 to 95% all throughout the season. So to see their red zone conversion or how frequently they can punch it in being that low is like, oh wow, Minnesota's able to keep them out of that area really well.
Yeah, so I want to talk about defense next. Actually, that's a great opportunity. Like, so I maybe less so Minnesota's defense and more so Chicago's offense. Like, they are a very well-oiled machine. Chicago operates as a single unit on the field when they're on offense, and it is scary. I mean, it's very impressive. I've said this multiple times on pod, off pod, but just like their ability to hold, their ability to maneuver throughout the field, taking that 10-yard dump and then all of a sudden they make their way up, 25 yards. Like they do that kind of one step backward, two steps forward kind of thing. And they do it really well. They're really, as individuals, the team is very well spread out when it comes to completions. Like there's not one single player who stands out in the stats, in the ranks, in completions, or even in assists. Like they all are kind of middle of the pack. And you can kind of use that maybe as a positive in Minnesota's favor, but I actually disagree. I think that's really strong in the Union's favor that it's not like you need to focus on Pavlianis and you take Pavlianis out of the game and this team crumbles. It's like everyone buys into the system. Like we always say that phrasing. Everyone's on the same level. Every single person contributes equally. And it's really hard to identify like this is the player. These are the two players who are going to make their assists. And like obviously there are team leaders. There has to be, but in context of the league, there really isn't one person who stands out, and that's I think what makes them so dangerous, and that's what I think makes their offense so good and this team so powerful.
Yeah, it's sort of emblematic of that. I think it's 2021 Flyers, where they were the Raleigh Flyers at the time. But that team was a very similar story where they had a lot of players who had scored a lot of goals throughout that season. And I remember talking about that, heading into those playoffs. I'm like, I think the Flyers are going to win this. I think, they have a lot of like guys who are able to get into the end zone, a lot of people who are able to get the disc into the end zone to find those players. And that's exactly what, Jeff's saying right now is a championship caliber team is a team that can rely on every player on the field to make a championship level play. And that's what the Union are able to do.
I don't want to give too much like attention to the Union side of it, so I'm gonna switch it over to focus on like what Minnesota's response to that will be. Although
Yeah.
all credit to them. I know we make a lot of jokes. Me especially, I do make a lot of jokes about the Union, but
They deserve it.
I do respect and appreciate good frisbee, and you gotta give laurels to the only undefeated team in the league. And it does mean something to me that it is a Central Division team that, the Central Division has been looked at unfavorably in history. So I think maybe that narrative is starting to change a little bit here.
Hmm.
Um, and it, to me would be interesting, especially if Minnesota does win with a dominant defensive effort, which might be what it does take to sort of get a break train going and maybe get some early momentum to, like I said, switch the narrative even in the story of Minnesota versus Chicago. Um, when you guys like talk about like on the offensive side of the disc, all the players need to be bought into the system. I think it at this point in Ultimate, especially at the professional level, there is a lot more to defense, sorry, than just individual athletic ability. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of people see the highlight plays on defense. They see the big spectacular blocks and the hair close plays, and they think, dang, it just takes a lot of effort to make good defensive plays. But like reading the articles today, like I said, a lot of players, especially like Justin Burnett was quoted with saying how his Callahan, for example, took all seven players on the field to make it happen because the mark had to be shutting down every option. The people playing the defense on the options and the in the other spaces had to be shutting those down completely. And so it's like, especially against a team like Chicago, when they're coming at you with a fully bought in offensive system, you have to come at that with knowledge of where they're going to be taking space, knowledge of how they want to attack, and not just being able to execute the plays, but knowing again the timing of it, knowing what the spacing has to be, what is an acceptable amount of space to give up versus an unacceptable amount of space, and what that
right.
balance looks like. And there's a lot of nuance to playing defense, and so it might take a stellar defensive effort, and that's what Minnesota can definitely produce.
Like that's a really good point. It reminds me of when I broke down some of the players from last year, specifically the young players. I had that article. Leo Salvel Fernandez was on there, and I pointed out in that article, you can go back and look on it and oneshottalk.com. There was a play where he was playing against Will Bryant. Actually, there was a college, Middlebury versus St. Olaf, and Leo Leo was so in tune with he was on defense. He was so in tune with the other team's offense. He broke off from his defender. He was defending a cutter and was able to, in so many words, basically just like intercept the disc. He cut off, I think, a throw from Will Brandt, or maybe a throw to Will Brandt. And just like it was really high IQ because again, he was reading the field. He wasn't just looking at his opponent and figuring, okay, oh, you're making a deep cut. It was like, oh, you're making a deep cut, but the disc is going under. I'm going under. Like, because I know I can take that. Like it's obviously it's a risk if you're going deep and I'm going under. But it was a calculated risk, and it wasn't really a risk because he knew what he was doing, right? There was strategy behind it. And there was skill behind it. So it's stuff like that, right? Yeah, thinking two, three throws ahead like you need, like we usually talk about on offense, but doing that on defense as well.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add to that. That was pretty much perfectly surmised.
I think too, my last thought before if we want to move on, that also reminds me, Kane, you mentioned the phrase like put together a break train. Um, Looking at the Salt Lake, the shred game a couple weeks ago, how they were really off to a poor start, and we can talk about poor starts and how that's been like the demise of the wind chill, especially against these three games against the shred and two games against the Union. Like we can kind of leave that in the past, but we do have to acknowledge like three terrible starts to games that definitely lost them the game. Putting that out there, they made a really great effort in the second quarter against the shred by putting together a break train, which brought the game within one, and they kept it there for a good amount of time. And so it's like even if you are down, you're not out, and finding a window and kind of forcing your hand in the window and then opening up the window, right? Or like opening up the door, kind of like a classic, like you shove your hand in as it's about to like the elevator doors before they close and you like force open the elevator door. Like they can do that. Their defense has the capability of doing that. They just have, yeah, they have to do that. They have to apply pressure. Um, and momentum is a real thing in Frisbee. They have to ride the momentum and they can do it. Like it would also help if they didn't get off to a slow start, then they wouldn't have to do that. But yeah, I mean they're always in the game. Okay. Anyone have any like players to watch that they want to call out? My player to watch is basically what we just talked about is their entire defense. So I don't have any one player, but I'm gonna say their defense needs to be on the whole game.
I have a
It
player. Jay, if you want to go for it.
No, go for it, go for it.
Blake Graffel. We
Okay.
maybe talked about him like once Like maybe. Shout
Yeah,
out Blake if you're listening, get you on the pod. I think he played for Madison a couple years ago or something like that.
I think he did, and I think he might have played for the Mechanics too, if I'm not
Okay, yeah,
mistaken.
that's what it was as well. Okay, yeah, I thought so. Um, he has been defensive pressure of the year for Minnesota. Quietly, my favorite pick on the D line. He's gotten a few spectacular, like really good blocks as well. And
Mhm.
so those are the ones where it makes you like kind of see him and look at him. And then you start watching him and you watch his amazing cutter defense. He's got lockdown handler defense, red zone defense. I think two of his blocks that I can like remember come in the red zone when he's so good at giving a little bit of a poach, seeing
Yeah.
where that space is gonna be. Like you said, Jeff, like with the Leo example, how he reads the field so well and he can like guard space as well as guarding defenders. And I
Mhm.
think that's super, super valuable, especially again against a team like Chicago who thrives at taking again open space and utilizing what we give them. Blake does not give them anything and he'll take away whatever options he can. And I love that. So I think this is his first year on the wind chill, maybe
Second.
second
Second.
year
He
in the wind chill.
played
Okay, it
played
is his
3 games
second.
last
Okay,
year.
that's right. That's right. But he's been impacting a lot this year. So I want to give him a shout out.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love kind of those under the radar players who probably don't deserve to be under the radar, but yeah, they kind of get overshadowed maybe by some of the highlight makers. Just like that steady presence on defense is exactly what you need. You don't you like the flashy plays, but you really just need that pressure. Um, yeah, that's awesome. That's a great call out. Jay?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's sort of hard to like pick a player to watch without sounding like a broken record. All
Yeah.
year we've talked about, the superstars on the team, James Pollard, Justin Burnett, and Bevon quietly making a resurgence toward the end of the year. Tristan Vandy Mortel, like Max. I brought up Max Hanscom a lot. I think he's, arguably makes a case for rookie of the year. Um, so just like a lot of like good players. But then yeah, you have someone like Blake Grapple who's just, makes massive impacts. So my player to watch is someone else who's made massive impacts. But it sort of went under the radar is Kyle Suflo. Kyle Suflo is having an amazing year. Uh, Played 5 regular season games and 1 postseason game, and guess what? He has an average of 1 block per game. Um, he racked up 2 against Pittsburgh and didn't get 1 against Chicago. Otherwise, 1 block per game that he's played.
Cool.
Um, so yeah, he's defensive powerhouse. He did have a highlight reel play this last Saturday against Madison. So that's actually why I'm bringing him up. I wanted to say like it's hard to pick Minnesota's like highlight reel players. Hard to not pick them because there are so many highlight reel plays.
Yeah.
Kyle Suflo had one, so I think it's time we give him some love. He's been good all year. He's putting up highlight reel level performances. Um, so yeah, I think Kyle Suflo is a great lockdown defender. Uh, he can get into open space. He's fast and he can get up. He has hops. That highlight reel play was him skying a stack and catching a disc that he should not have caught. So go watch it.
That's another good call out. The thing I like about like both those call outs, hold on, I gotta look up Blake's here really quick. It the thing about the both those call outs is that they're both players who I actually questioned, as you said, as you both said them, oh, are they even gonna make the postseason roster? Because I know, the wind chill, and probably all teams, rightfully so, you look towards your veterans, you look toward the guys who've performed all season, and you say, hey, so and so, you're gonna step to the side for the playoffs. Not how do I phrase this? Not that those games didn't mean anything, but this game means a little bit more, so we gotta get to our tried and true. But both those players, first of all, made the playoff roster, right? They're both playing against Madison, and they both proved themselves in the regular season that they earned the spot. They're not the ones sitting on the bench, right? Like not called on. The Winchell have done a great job building their roster from the ground up, getting that, like, if you will call it the farm system, the young players paired in with the vets so that they're all blended in like seamlessly now. Like this team is so well built. And it's comprised of the savvy veterans, the up and coming, hungry rookies, and everyone in between. It's like, though I would have never guessed that those two players would be on our like players to watch for the biggest game of the season to this point.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one thing I wanted to just talk about, I guess this is a decent enough time as any, is what Jay kind of alluded to. We need a lot of dominance and highlight plays in the playoffs. I think a lot of times, just like in sports in general, it does come down to the buzzer beaters. It comes down to the highlight plays. Um, Obviously, we just spent a lot of time talking about how it doesn't, and it's not always about that. But people remember those. People remember the sky over two defenders, and not
Yep.
only the fans, but the players remember that. People, the team remembers the Justin Burnett Callahan. The team remembers the layout block. Like it does make a difference in terms of momentum, like you were saying, Jeff. Like momentum's a big thing in frisbee, and so I think if Minnesota can rely on, like I said earlier, generating a big play early on, generating some momentum,
Mhm.
making Chicago remember who Minnesota is, which is a championship title defender.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a good game. I'm really excited. Like I said, I'm nervous. I'm excited. I have no idea what's gonna happen. I mean, I have my predictions of who's gonna win, but I really don't know how the game's gonna play out.
Honestly, it could be like a blowout with Chicago winning, a blowout with Minnesota winning, or the tightest game we've seen all season going into double overtime and like
Yeah,
a wild play to end it. And I would
yeah.
believe any single one of those outcomes.
That's yeah. Yeah, I see that too. Well, do we want to just real quick preview the league, the whole weekend that's coming up? Jay or Kane, I talk about this stuff a lot, so I'll let one of you two, if you want, give us the preview.
Heck yeah. Kane, no offense, I'm gonna take it.
Go for it, bro.
All right. So upcoming next Friday nights, I don't know when this will be released, but Friday night, August 8th, San Diego Growlers versus the Atlanta Hustle. That is going to be a very fun game. The Hustle beat the Growlers in the regular season. Um, uh, I don't know the exact outcome of their first game of their first meeting. Um, but regardless, Hustle are, at home. Growlers are traveling to them. Hustle are looking really good. They're one of the best teams in the league. They have the lowest total turnovers of any team in the league. But the Growlers are coming off of a massive upset against the Austin Soul. So everyone, Austin Soul for the majority of the season was looking like the team to beat, looking like the best team. And the Growlers, put them to bed. They beat them by 6 in their semifinals South Division game. So I think the South Division is going to be a really interesting game to watch. If you're free Friday night, check out that game. The next game will be Saturday. So the remaining 3 games will actually all be on Saturday. The first slated is the DC Breeze versus the Boston Glory. Kane's New York Empire got knocked out. They did not close out on a hot streak. And when I say they got knocked out, I mean they got absolutely obliterated
Obliterated.
by the DC Breeze. They lost by 11. Like that is, I mean, holy buckets. That is a shell of New York's former self. Um, and the DC Breeze truly looked unstoppable in that game. Um, so previously, I didn't know who was going to be coming out of the East. That was a super tight division. So just DC Breeze, despite traveling to Boston, I have the Breeze taking this game handily. They looked completely unstoppable. Their offense was clicking all the way. If they play that well, they are the best team in the league every day of the week, twice on Sundays, and especially on championship weekend. Following that game, or I guess it'll start during that game, Minnesota Wind Chill at Chicago Union. We just spent a lot of time previewing that. So you can obviously check out that one. And the last game to start will be the Oakland Spiders at Salt Lake. And I think this might be my favorite matchup of the season. Uh, Oakland and Salt Lake have played each other twice this year. They are very evenly matched teams. Um, Salt Lake, I think, won both of the matchups. They beat them by yeah. So the Salt Lake beat Oakland once by 1 point and once by 4 points. Um, but pretty close games, all things considered. And Oakland never looked out of those games. And in the 1 point loss, they really looked like they could have won it as well. Um, so I think this will be one of the most interesting games to watch. I think the Spiders have a really good chance of upsetting Salt Lake at home, at Zion's Bank Stadium, doing something the Wind Chill couldn't do, and taking a win over Salt Lake to make it to championship weekend. But I guess we will see.
Jay, you just love the West Division, huh?
Yeah, West Division is the best division,
Jay Jay is
other than the
actually
Central,
Jay
other than the
actually
Central.
has a side podcast where they talk about the Oakland Spiders.
Dude,
Spider
they're
talk.
so good. They're so good.
Has some cool
It's
trivia.
arachnid talk, actually.
Oh,
Arachnid talk.
all right. Arachnopod. What? I don't.
Ah, I see what you did there.
It's yeah. Feel free to use it. Let's
Octopod.
octo.
At that point, just call it an octopus.
All right.
All right. Anyway,
Let's give our score predictions for and or final outcome predictions for the Union versus Winchell. I'm gonna go last. I can go
Oh
first. I don't
boy.
care.
I'll go first. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game, but I think it's gonna be for some reason 1922 Minnesota. That's like the first score that popped into my brain, so I'm going with it. Maybe I'm an
Nice.
oracle.
I'm thinking 23-24 Minnesota.
Oh
Ooh,
wow.
that's a really high scoring game. Okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
I
an
would
offensive showcase.
say I don't have a score that popped in my head. I'll say 18-20
That sounds
Winchell.
reasonable.
No,
That
I'm
sounds
gonna say
reasonable.
18-20 Union. This is where I'm waffling. I'm gonna stay with the Union. 18-20 Union. However, if like Jay kind of not predicted, but mentioned, if it happens to go into overtime and or double overtime, for some reason, I think that goes in the Winchell's favor. I don't have a lot of evidence on that. I'm not trying to open up a new can of worms with 7 minutes left, but I think the longer the game goes, the more likely the Winchell can win.
I think that's
And I'll
fair.
just maybe, yeah, leave it at
Well,
that.
I think that's fair. I think Minnesota, especially like when you look at like I said earlier, they are the championship team from last year.
Hmm.
You know, if it comes down to the pressure moment, if it comes down to the wire, I think Minnesota has proven they can handle pressure, and Chicago hasn't had that opportunity yet. So I just think that's a fair assessment. I don't think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, well, and I think like
let's screw the
that
Union.
shows that the Winchell are in it. Like if it's gonna blow out, if they blow out in the first quarter, I don't know if the Winchell, I think they can, but I don't know if they will be able to come back.
Right.
Right? They have the talent and the skill, but they're not gonna be in it. But if they're
If
keeping
they're
it tight the whole game, it's like, yeah, we're in this and they're hungry. It's within reach. I think, yeah, that plays in their favor.
That's fair. Then they can close it out. Whereas if they come from behind, they might not be able to. That's fair. And again, I think we have seen that historically in Minnesota where, or
Yep.
again, Chicago, where we don't finish the games, right? Even if we do make a push. So yeah, I think this game will come down to, if nothing else, the last quarter. So
Yep. Agreed.
I'm
Okay.
excited,
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
It'll
nervous.
be a good weekend of Frisbee.
It will be. It will be a good one.
Or it'll be a ton of
I
blowouts again. We'll see.
Yeah, that was wild.
I really wish that we could go to Chicago for this game, but alas, we will be watching virtually. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else. If you guys don't either, we can wrap up. Stay
That's all I
chilly
got.
and ka-chow.
Stay
Stay
chilly.
chilly.
Ka-chow.
Ciao.